So now we're going to explore one of the most powerful parts of the sustainable business story, and that is the all-encompassing practice of waste and waste reduction. And I first really started to think more carefully about this after reading Natural Capitalism by Paul Hawken and Amory and Hunter Lovins, where they discuss some of the principles of natural capitalism. And in particular, they share the story of Toyota and the idea of muda, which means waste. And they talk about the founder of Toyota being a tenacious studier of waste and waste reduction. And that really led to the whole Japanese quality movement and the idea of lean manufacturing, which really is part of the evolution of sustainable practices. The other concept of natural capitalism related to waste is called radical resource productivity, which means really ultimately that there is no waste. And so I want to share with you some of the additional companies that have been tenaciously eliminating waste in their manufacturing processes, in their supply chains. And then one of the biggest surprises is how companies, consumer products companies, work to eliminate waste in the use of their products by consumers. So we're standing now next to one of the many compost piles in the garden, which you might not connect with waste reduction as a corporate business practice, but for me, the process of building compost and building soil helped me understand more fully the concept of waste reduction, and in particular the idea of closing loops, which is a concept from Bill McDonough's Cradle to Cradle, as well as the practice of permaculture. And that the really radical idea is that there is no waste, that in nature, waste is continually upcycled and recycled. And here in the garden, this, for instance, is one of the compost piles that really was started towards the spring. And so 3 or 4 months ago, this was just grasses, and then added to that is I can see pieces of corn and onions and different plants and woody material. We're in mid-October, and so we've harvested a lot of the plants, and this will be used to grow food next summer. And this is the idea of closing loops and re-intentioning or repurposing waste. So I'd like to also share with you one of the really most innovative companies that I've come across in my research around waste reduction and corporate sustainability. And that company is known as Terracycle. It's a company based near Trenton, New Jersey. And the concept there, and their really corporate mantra, if you will, is we don't throw it out, we figure it out. And this is a fascinating company that has upcycled thousands of what previously was wasted packaging material that was sent to landfills. And they're doing all kinds of innovative things like turning used juice packs into kids' backpacks. And they're working with many of the major consumer products companies to take what previously might be wasted packaging material and recycling it or upcycling it into new consumer products. Secondly, there's one of the pioneering companies, which actually is a large public company in the commercial carpet arena, is called Interface Floor. And their CEO, Ray Anderson, is one of the great leaders, thought leaders, and thinkers around corporate sustainability. Wrote an iconic book called Mid-Course Correction, Climbing Mount Sustainability, after he read Paul Hawken's Ecology of Commerce. And they put into practice over now almost 2 decades of research and study of how to eliminate waste in what really is a very notoriously dirty manufacturing process, making commercial carpet with a lot of glues and toxic waste. And the interface story includes making new carpet by studying the forest floor and implementing something called biomimicry and creating carpet tiles called entropy that have random patterns so they can always be replaced and you don't have to replace the whole carpet, to eliminating using glues by studying how geckos use adhesives and creating new self-adhering carpet tiles. And so Terracycle and Interface are two of the really interesting case studies as relates to waste reduction in corporate sustainability. And now share with you one of my favorite parts of waste reduction, and we'll call that the 7 R's. Recycling is maybe one of the most commonly known pieces of the sustainability puzzle, but I'd like to share with you, before recycling comes a number of very important principles that corporations far and wide have now started to integrate into their manufacturing processes and distribution and transportation. And that's the idea, number 1, of reducing, number 2, reusing, number 3, repairing, number 4, retrofitting. So let's just kind of talk about a couple of those. And here in the garden, a fun kind of experiment is this natural building which we use as a greenhouse in the winter and kind of a harvest house this time of year in October and November. In the summer we hang garlic here and pick fruit in the orchard. And so this building is made up all with materials that could have been waste that were all re-intentioned and repurposed for this natural building, including this old door, which actually came from an old house, as well as all of the ponderosa pine, which was taken from this land right here, the shale sandstone rock all came up out of the excavation for the house, which is kind of the foundation, and then even a couple of pieces of dimensional lumber would have been scrapped that came from the house construction, including the material that we use to make a living roof on top of this building. And so this is just one fun, small example of how you can repurpose and re-intention and reuse and retrofit material that otherwise might be waste. And this is obviously closely connected to the whole green building movement and LEED certification and some of those topics that I'll talk about in another segment. So that concludes our discussion about waste reduction as a perspective on corporate sustainability.